our collaboration with the Senate under your able leadership. Just one or two quick reflections on the very important partnership that there is between the European Union and Nigeria in general, and of course the Senate in particular. So as you will know, the European Union is an old friend and close ally and partner of Nigeria, and we see that really in so many different areas. Of course, in economic terms, Europe is the primary market for Nigerian trade, so you would see around half of all exports from Nigeria are destined for European shores. And even one of the economic relationships where there is the clearest surplus in favor of Nigeria. And that's, of course, not necessarily good for Europe, but it's certainly good for Nigeria and for the job creation and for the opportunities and the development here. And talking of development, of course, we are also very significant development partners. So if you combine the European Union and member states alike, we are the biggest provider of development cooperation, and the areas where we engage are too many to mention. But I'm sure Your Excellency will be very pleased to know that right as we are speaking now, we are launching a very large and new program in Yobe State. So this is a new chapter in the engagement of the European Union, already very significantly present throughout the country, but now with a flagship program in your own state. So I have a team there presenting this together with the governor just as we are speaking. We are key political partners also, and I think the presence here of the observation mission is a case in point in that sense, but in so many other areas, of course, we work shoulder by shoulder with our Nigerian counterparts, whether in working together and seeking peace and stability around the country, in the northeast, in the Middle Belt, Niger Delta, in the Gulf of Guinea and elsewhere, or working on so many other key priorities. How to make sure that we find a common way forward on migration is also a very important message. And I must say, Excellency, that the spirit and the philosophy of the work that we are doing is always to follow the lead of Nigeria. So we are not here to impose policies or to try to replicate what has worked in our countries, but to listen very carefully to your visions and to your policies and to our best ability partner with you on those issues in Nigeria, and also, of course, beyond Nigerian borders. Nigeria is a leader not only in the near region, but also on the continent, and also on a global stage to a certain extent. And we look to Nigeria to partner with the European Union on all of those matters. But today we are here predominantly to discuss and to present to you the important findings of the election observation mission that we have had here, and I will leave to the Deputy Chief Observer to make her remarks. But just to stress that the European Union has had observation missions here at every single general election since 1999. And as a matter of fact, we have also partnered with the National Assembly and with other key stakeholders here to see that continued consolidation and deepening of democratic governance in the country, to the extent that European taxpayers have provided more than 100 million euros in support for so many programs, many of them reaching the Senate itself, the political parties, but of course also support for INEC and for civil society organizations. And we are looking to continue that partnership and to strengthen that partnership, to see to the extent possible having reform processes taking place ahead of the upcoming elections, of course based on that national dialogue that is always necessary to see the best possible reflection and the best possible lessons learned on any electoral experience. And certainly we do not pretend that election processes are perfect anywhere in the world. That goes for Europe also. There's a lot that can be learned, a lot that can be done. So I think that is the spirit with which we are here today engaging in this dialogue with you. But Excellency, please count on the European Union to keep partnering with you, with the Senate, with the wider National Assembly, in pursuit of development, of unity and prosperity for all Nigerians. That is our main mandate here, and it's with that spirit that we are here today. Now with that, and with your blessing, Excellency, let me just pass over the floor to the Deputy Chief Observer for her introduction of the findings and the recommendations of the EU Observation Mission. Thank you very much.
Opportunity to meet with you. If I may, I will spend a few minutes just to explain something of the work that we've been lucky enough to do here in Nigeria over recent months. As the Ambassador mentioned, we were invited by INEC to come and observe these elections as an independent election observation mission. We had observers on the ground for 3 months, from early January till early April, including 40 long-term observers who were deployed across the country, working in teams of 2, so that they visited every state. While, of course, we couldn't visit every polling station in a country as large as Nigeria, we were able to see the reality on the ground and to be identifying some of the things that were going well in the electoral process and some of the areas where there is room for improvement. This week, we released our final report with our Chief Observer, Maria Arena, a member of the European Parliament, who unfortunately has commitments back in Europe, so can't be here today. And it's a great pleasure to be able to bring a copy of the report to you today. We hope very much that this report serves the interests of Nigerian people. In particular, we have 30 recommendations for electoral reform. This is the most important part of the document for us. Of those 30, we've identified 7 priority recommendations, but really our ultimate conclusion is that a process of comprehensive reform is needed in order to really strengthen the electoral process so that some of the problems that we clearly saw during this election process are not repeated in future years, so that elections can be smoother and the world can see the improvements that Nigeria is taking in regard to elections. We'll be very happy to talk in more detail later, but again, thank you for the opportunity. And if I may just say one last thing, of these 30 recommendations, the majority of them involve legal reform. Therefore, of course, we look to the National Assembly to be taking the initiative on having an inclusive debate, an inclusive conversation, and moving these recommendations forward. And what we see from other countries around the world is that it's critical that this starts early, because the closer to an election that it gets, the more heated the conversation gets, as there are stronger vested interests. And it takes time to have the debate, it takes time to do the research, to get agreement on the policies, and then time for implementation. So we hope very much that under your leadership and tenure, there will be initiatives taken to take early steps towards the reform that we feel it's important for the Nigerian people to have. Thank you very much, sir.
The Ambassador, Head of a Delegation of EU, Ambassador Keitec Karlsen, the Deputy Chief Observer, Hannah Roberts, and the other members on this delegation. Good afternoon, everyone. Let me start by thanking you for this very important and historic visit, because this will be the first official courtesy visit I will be receiving. So this is a very historic one, being the #1 visit. And of course, what can be more important than visit by election observers? We consider our electoral process very seriously, and we go through reforms, trying to ensure that we get it right. And with every general elections, or even by elections or rerun, there will always be lessons for us to learn. And this is very important for us, because the ultimate desire and goal of all of us in this country, especially the leaders of this country, is to have an electoral process that will, at the end of the day, make the selection or election of leaders in all the positions in the country very credible and meet the international best practices and the integrity that is required. So we take this, your assignment very seriously. We are happy you have been in this country all through since 1999 when Nigeria was returned to democracy. For us in the National Assembly, particularly the Senate, we have always worked hard on the electoral bill and even the Constitution to ensure that the electoral issues that crop up after every election is addressed so that we improve on the standards. I believe that your observations, even though I'm yet to know the details, but your observations will require the National Assembly legislative intervention somehow. I agree with you completely that we need to start in good time. We'll be looking at the lessons that we have to learn from the 2019 general elections. And even those elections that were done before 2019, because we were not able to address most of some of the issues that we should have addressed due to particularly the wrong timing we had when the electoral bill amendment was sought. But I am sure that this time around we'll try to start considering those issues that we feel require urgent legislative intervention so that we're able to do them before we are close to the general elections of 2023. Let me also thank the ambassador. Once I served as a member of the ACP-EU, the African, Caribbean, Pacific, European Union Joint Parliamentary Assembly. And I want to take this opportunity to request that you extend more support to the legislature, particularly the National Assembly, so that our members, both senators and the members of the House of Representatives, are able to develop some capacity. You know that we are just coming in, and many of us, if not the majority, are coming in new. And that requires that we engage in some capacity development for our senators and members of the House of Representatives. This will go also to the request for our committees. Some of our committees require some specialized consultancies and competencies. I believe that there will be need for the EU to look into how you can support most of our committees. In the present assembly, particularly the Senate, we intend to work so hard to ensure that we carry out our mandate, our work of oversight of legislation and representation in a very committed and dedicated manner. We want to work in a very united manner, and we are lucky the Senate and indeed the House during the contest voted in a very bipartisan way, showing and indicating a clear direction that we are ready for work, not for partisanship, and that is a very good sign for this 9th National Assembly. So I want to urge you that we extend your support to the National Assembly, to individual members of the National Assembly for capacity building, and of course to the committees. Some of our committees are very technical in nature, and those who will serve on such committees require to understand the kind of issues that they need to address, and I believe that that will not be a difficult thing to do. You are already doing some of these things. We only need to see an improvement, just like Oliver Twist. We need more and more. You have invested more on the executive side of the government, but the legislature, I think, holds the S in this respect, because the executive depends on the legislature to perform optimally for it to get the needed input and raw materials, if you like, for it to perform. So give us what is a little bit more so that we're able to give the kind of support the executive requires. The election, the INEC particularly is one institution that has been supported fully by the National Assembly and will continue to do that through legislation to improve its capacity, but also through appropriations to ensure that it gets whatever it requires for very credible and optimum organization, processing, and conduct of our elections. But just like you have been supporting INEC, I think we'll ask for more. INEC is going through transformation, and I believe that the body will require more support and more resources. We have been able to, in the National Assembly, provide a lot of resources for INEC, but those resources have never been enough. You know that it is our desire as a country to ensure that our electoral body performs unquestionably, because there must be integrity, there must be credibility in the outcomes of the elections conducted by INEC, and even the state independent electoral bodies across the country. So it is important that we continue to support INEC together with you, so that INEC is able to perform the functions, statutory functions, creditably well, and of course the outcomes shouldn't be questioned, except if one desires to be partisan. But let it be open to everyone and obvious that INEC is able to conduct elections with all the integrity and credibility that is necessary. I want to also request the observers to give us all the details of your report, not part of it, so that we go through it at the appropriate time and see which ones we can address by legislation, and which ones we can support the policies that could emanate from the executive side of government. We are prepared to listen to our development partners. We are prepared to go together to ensure that your concerns are addressed. But let me also quickly add here that this is going to be a long process. Europe or America has not reached where they are today through hops and jumps. It has taken some of your countries more than 300 years, maybe in the case of Britain. The US is close to 270 years to be where they are today. You know, our democracy has been interrupted several times, but thank God today we have one long period of over 20 years of non-interrupted democracy. So it's going to be a long and distant journey that you will have to keep with us and be patient with us. But I want to assure you that we will do everything possible to make sure that our elections continue to be credible. Thank you very much.